You hear your own heartbeat first, not the steady rhythm you've known all your life. This one is wrong, broken. It stutters like a damaged engine, each beat weaker than the last, and somewhere in the foggy distance of your fading consciousness, you understand that this sound, this failing drum inside your chest, might be the last thing you ever hear. The ceiling above you is white, sterile, the kind of white that hospitals use to pretend everything is clean, everything is fixable, but you can smell it beneath the antiseptic. The rot, the decay, the truth they can't bleach away. Your body is cold, so cold. The thin hospital gown does nothing to protect you from the chill seeping into your bones. And you wonder if this is what dying feels like. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just cold. You try to move your fingers. They barely twitch. Your lips are dry, cracked, and when you try to speak, only a whisper of breath escapes. The machines beside you beep in irregular patterns, and somewhere beyond the fog in your mind, you know those sounds should mean something. They should tell you if you're winning or losing this battle with your own failing body. But then you hear something else. Voices. Not the voices of nurses checking vitals or doctors discussing treatment plans. These voices are familiar, intimate. They belong to people who should be crying right now, people who should be praying, begging, holding your hand, and refusing to let go. Instead, they're laughing. You strain to hear through the half-open door of your hospital room. Your brain sluggish, your thoughts moving through water. The morphine in your veins makes everything dreamlike, unreal. But you force yourself to focus because something in those voices, in that laughter, sends ice through your already frozen limbs. Honestly, thought she'd last longer than this. That's your husband's voice, Michael, the man you married 7 years ago under a canopy of white roses, the man who promised to love you in sickness and in health, the man whose hand you held during your mother's funeral, whose tears you wiped away when his father died, the man who knows exactly how you like your coffee, who bought you that ridiculous stuffed elephant because you mentioned once, just once, that you'd loved elephants as a child. His voice is light, almost cheerful. I know. God, I know. I was worried for a bit there. This voice is softer, feminine, tinged with something that sounds almost like relief. When did the doctor say? Could be tonight. Could be tomorrow morning. Her organs are shutting down. Liver first, then kidneys. The sepsis spread faster than they expected. You stop breathing. Not because your body forces you to, but because your mind cannot process what you're hearing. The words float in the air like poison, and you want to unhear them. You want to rewind time by 30 seconds and plug your ears and return to that moment when you believed, still believed, that the people you loved were good. And the life insurance, the woman's voice asks, you're sure it's all in order? Your husband, Michael, your Michael, laughs, actually laughs. It's a sound you know well, a sound you used to love. That deep chuckle that rumbled in his chest when you'd tell him a stupid joke or when the dog did something ridiculous. That same laugh, now wrapped around words that make your blood turn to acid. 250,000, all signed and sealed 3 years ago. She never suspected a thing. The woman sighs, and it's a sound of contentment, of satisfaction. We could finally take that trip to Italy, the one we've been planning. Baby, we can do more than Italy. We can do anywhere you want. 6 months in Europe, a year if we're smart with it. You feel something wet on your face and realize you're crying. Silent tears that slide down your temples and disappear into your hair. Your body won't let you sob, won't let you scream, won't give you the release that this moment demands. You're trapped in this broken shell, forced to listen as the man you loved and the woman he chose carve up your life like vultures over carrion. What about the funeral? She asks. Have you thought about what you'll say? I've got it planned. Something about how brave she was, how she fought until the end. I'll cry, obviously. Maybe mention that stupid elephant she loved. He pauses. People eat that up. The grieving husband angle. You're terrible, the woman says, but she's laughing. They're both laughing now, and the sound is a blade that cuts deeper than any scalpel. I'm practical, Michael corrects. There's a difference. You want to scream. You want to rise from this bed like a ghost in a horror film. Want to burst through that door and make them see you. Make them understand that you're not dead yet, that you can hear every poisonous word spilling from their mouths. But your body is a prison. Your limbs won't obey. Your voice has abandoned you. All you can do is lie here, tears streaming, heartbreaking in ways that have nothing to do with organ failure, and listen as they plan your funeral with the same casual efficiency they might use to plan a dinner party. The dress, the woman says. What will you bury her in? Does it matter? She'll be dead. Michael. Her voice carries a playful chiding. You have to look like you care. Pick something she loved. Something that'll make people cry. The blue one, then. The one she wore to her sister's wedding. Perfect. And flowers. White roses. Keep it classic. Nothing too expensive, though. We'll need that money. The machines beside you continue their irregular beeping, and you focus on that sound, trying to anchor yourself to something, anything, that makes sense. But nothing makes sense anymore. The world has tilted sideways, and you're sliding off the edge into an abyss you didn't know existed. When do you think we should start seeing each other publicly? The woman asks. Give it 6 months, maybe 8. Don't want to look suspicious. I'll play the destroyed widower for a while. It'll make the eventual happiness look more authentic, like I finally learned to move on, found love again after tragedy. You've really thought this through. I've had time. His voice drops lower, intimate. Been thinking about it for over a year now. Over a year. The words hit you like a physical blow. Over a year he's been planning this. Planning your death. Planning his future without you. While you were making his favorite meals. While you were asking about his day. While you were lying beside him in bed and talking about maybe having children someday. He was counting down the days until you were gone. I love you, the woman whispers, and you can hear the rustle of clothing, the sound of an embrace. I love you too, Michael replies, and soon we won't have to hide anymore. Their footsteps fade down the hallway, their voices dissolving into the general hospital noise, and you're left alone in your room with only the beeping machines and the truth that's killing you faster than any disease ever could. You close your eyes. You want to die now. Actually, die. Because how do you come back from this? How do you survive knowing that the person you trusted most in the world was waiting for you to die? That he was counting life insurance money while you were counting the days until you felt better? But then, Mrs. Harrington, a voice, new, unfamiliar. You struggle to open your eyes, the effort enormous, and through the blur, you see a nurse standing beside your bed. She's young, maybe mid-30s, with kind eyes and dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her name tag says, Claudia. Mrs. Harrington, can you hear me? You try to nod, manage the barest movement of your head. Good, she says softly, leaning closer. I need you to listen carefully. I was in the hallway just now. I heard your husband. I heard everything. The tears come harder now, and she reaches out, gently wiping them away with a tissue. I need you to know something. Claudia continues, her voice steady and sure. You're not dying. You were dying. The sepsis was bad, very bad, but we got the antibiotics adjusted 2 hours ago. Your levels are improving, slowly, but they're improving. Dr. Morrison was about to come tell your husband the good news. You stare at her, unable to process what she's saying. You're going to live, Mrs. Harrington. Your organs are responding to treatment. You're going to survive this. The irony is so brutal. It's almost funny. Almost. You're going to live. You're going to walk out of this hospital and return to a life that no longer exists, to a marriage that was a lie, to a man who was waiting for your death certificate like it was a winning lottery ticket. I need to know, Claudia says, her hand finding yours, her warmth shocking against your cold skin. Do you want me to tell him about the improvement, or do you want to wait? You look into her eyes and see something there. Recognition, understanding, solidarity. This woman, this stranger, is offering you something precious. Time, information, power. You squeeze her hand, once, twice. Your grip is weak, but it's there. Wait, you manage to whisper, the word barely audible but clear enough. Claudia nods. Okay, I'll make sure the information stays quiet for now. I'll tell the attending to hold off on updating your husband about your improvement. We'll say you're still critical, unstable. Why? You whisper. She understands the question. Why would she help you? Why would she risk her job, her professional reputation, to aid in what amounts to deception? Because I was you once, she says simply. Different circumstances, but I know what it's like to discover that the person you loved was a stranger. I know what it's like to need time to think, to plan, to figure out your next move. She squeezes your hand back. And because what I heard in that hallway wasn't a man worried about his wife. It was a man planning a crime. Maybe not a crime he could be arrested for, but a crime against you nonetheless. You close your eyes, and for the first time since you heard those voices in the hallway, you feel something other than despair. You feel a tiny spark of something that might, eventually, become rage, might become strength. Rest now, Claudia says. Heal, and when you're stronger, we'll figure out what comes next. She checks your IV, adjusts your blankets, and makes a note on your chart. Before she leaves, she pauses at the door. Mrs. Harrington, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're going to survive this. I have a feeling you're going to do more than just survive. And then she's gone, and you're alone again, with the beeping machines, and the cold hospital air, and the knowledge that has split your life into before and after. Before, when you believed in love and marriage and partnership. After, when you learned that sometimes the person sleeping beside you is dreaming of your funeral. I'm Sarah Harrington. I'm 34 years old. I thought pain was something you could recover from. A broken bone that heals, a wound that scars over, a loss that dulls with time. I thought betrayal was something that happened quickly, dramatically, all at once. A confession, an affair discovered, a moment when everything shatters. I didn't know that betrayal could be slow, patient, methodical. I didn't know that someone could look at you with love in their eyes while calculating exactly how much your death was worth. The night that changed everything wasn't dramatic at all. I didn't walk in on anything. I didn't find incriminating texts or suspicious receipts. I didn't have some moment of clarity where the pieces suddenly clicked into place. Instead, I was dying. Or at least, I was supposed to be. I had been sick for 3 weeks. What started as a mild fever and fatigue spiraled into something much worse, a severe infection that spread through my bloodstream, poisoning my organs one by one. Sepsis, they called it. A killer that works fast when you're unlucky. I remember the ambulance ride, the sirens, the way Michael held my hand and told me to hold on, just hold on. I remember believing he meant it. They admitted me to the ICU, hooked me up to machines that breathed for me, fed me, monitored every failing system in my deteriorating body. The doctors spoke in hushed tones about organ failure, about critical windows, about decisions that might need to be made. Michael was there for all of it. He slept in the chair beside my bed. He spoke to doctors. He called my family with updates, his voice breaking at all the right moments. He played the role of devoted husband so perfectly that even I believed it. Even as I drifted in and out of consciousness, even as my body fought a war it seemed destined to lose, I would force my eyes open and see him there and think, I am so lucky. Even in this nightmare, I have him. And then I heard him in the hallway. I heard him laugh about my death. I heard him plan his future with another woman. A future built on my life insurance policy in the absence of my breathing body. I heard him choose white roses for my funeral, not because I loved them, but because they were classic and affordable and would make him look good. The pain of organ failure, of sepsis ravaging my body, of machines having to do the work my lungs couldn't manage. All of that was nothing compared to the pain of that moment, that realization, that understanding that the man I married, the man I trusted with every piece of my heart, was counting down the hours until I stopped being an inconvenience and became a payout. They say your life flashes before your eyes when you're dying. That didn't happen to me. Instead, my marriage flashed before my eyes. Every moment recontextualized, every memory poisoned, every I love you revealed as a lie. And the worst part, I survived. I wasn't supposed to. The infection was supposed to win. My organs were supposed to give up. The machines were supposed to fall silent. But a nurse overheard. A nurse named Claudia, who shouldn't have been in that hallway at that exact moment, who shouldn't have heard what she heard, who made a choice that saved my life in more ways than one. She told me the truth. I was going to live, and she gave me a choice. Did I want my husband to know? That's where this story really begins. Not in the hospital bed where I was dying, not in the hallway where he planned my funeral, but in the moment when I realized that I had been given something I didn't ask for and didn't know what to do with. A second chance. A chance to come back from the dead and face the man who wanted me gone. A chance to discover who I really was when everything I believed in turned out to be fiction. A chance to answer a question I never thought I'd have to ask. What do you do when the person who vowed to love you forever was secretly counting the days until forever ended, before that night in the hospital, before I heard those voices in the hallway, before my world cracked open and revealed the rot underneath? I had a life I loved, or at least, I thought I did. Michael and I met 8 years ago at a friend's barbecue. It was one of those perfect summer afternoons where everything feels saturated with possibility. The sun bright, but not too hot. The air filled with the smell of grilled food and cut grass. Music playing from someone's portable speaker. I was standing by the drinks table, trying to open a particularly stubborn bottle of wine, when he appeared beside me, took the bottle from my hands without asking, and opened it with an easy twist. "Trick is not to fight it," he said, pouring wine into my cup. "Just firm, steady pressure." I should have known then. I should have seen something in that moment. The way he took control without asking. The confidence that assumed he knew better. The casual appropriation of my struggle as an opportunity to demonstrate his competence. But I didn't see any of that. I just saw a handsome man with kind eyes and an easy smile, and when he asked for my number, I gave it to him without hesitation. Our courtship was textbook. Dinner dates where he always knew the best restaurants. Weekend trips to wineries and beaches. Long conversations about our dreams, our fears, our pasts. He told me about his parents' difficult divorce, about feeling abandoned by his father. I told him about my mother's battle with cancer, about the year I spent watching her fade. We bonded over loss, over the understanding that life was fragile and love was precious. He proposed on the anniversary of our first date, in the same backyard where we met, under a canopy of string lights that made everything feel magical and predetermined. I said yes, before he even finished asking. My friends cried. My father hugged him and called him son. Everything felt right, in a way that I thought was destiny, but was probably just my own desperate hope for a happy ending. The wedding was small, but beautiful. White roses everywhere. His choice, though he said it was because he knew I'd love them. I didn't love them particularly, but I loved that he cared enough to choose. So I said they were perfect. That's what love is, I thought. Compromise, acceptance, finding beauty in the choices someone else makes for you. We bought a small house in the suburbs, the kind with a decent yard and good schools nearby, and friendly neighbors who waved from their porches. Michael worked in finance, something with investments and portfolios that I never fully understood, but that seemed stable and respectable. I worked as a graphic designer from home, spending my days creating logos and website layouts for small businesses, work that I found satisfying in its small completeness. Our life was quiet, predictable. We had routines, coffee together every morning, walks with our dog Bailey in the evenings, Saturday morning farmers markets, Sunday dinners with my family. We talked about having kids someday, though Michael always said, "Let's wait a bit longer." And I always agreed, because I trusted his judgment about timing and readiness and all those practical things I assumed couples plan together. Looking back now, I can see the cracks, the small moments that should have warned me, the way he'd check his phone at odd hours and then explain it away with work emergencies, the business trips that seemed to increase in frequency, the nights he'd come home late smelling of perfume that wasn't mine, with explanations about colleagues and client dinners that I accepted without question because I believed in him, in us, in the life we were building. I believed in it so completely that I didn't notice when he started pulling away, when conversations became shorter, less substantive, when he stopped asking about my day, stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped reaching for me in the night. I told myself it was just the natural evolution of marriage, the honeymoon phase ending, real life settling in. Everyone said the first few years were the hardest, that you had to work to keep the spark alive. So I worked. I planned date nights that he'd cancel. I cooked his favorite meals that he'd eat while scrolling through his phone. I initiated intimacy that he'd accept, but not reciprocate, leaving me feeling more alone after than I did before. "Are you happy?" I asked him once, about 6 months before I got sick. We were in bed, both staring at the ceiling in the dark. His answer came too quickly. "Of course. Why wouldn't I be?" "I don't know. You just seem distant lately." "I'm stressed at work. That's all." And I believed him, because what else could I do? The alternative, that something was fundamentally wrong, that the man I married was becoming a stranger, was too terrible to consider. So I didn't consider it. I pushed the unease down, deep into some compartment of my mind where uncomfortable truths go to die. I focused on the good moments, the rare evenings when he'd seem like his old self, when we'd laugh over something stupid, and I'd think, there he is. Everything's fine. I didn't know that those moments weren't him returning to me. They were just guilt making brief appearances before vanishing again behind whatever wall he'd built between us. 3 months before the hospital, he insisted we update our life insurance policies. "We're getting older," he said. "We should be responsible. Make sure we're covered if anything happens." It seemed reasonable, mature, the kind of thing responsible adults did. I signed the papers without reading them carefully, trusting that Michael had handled the details. He was better with that stuff anyway. Numbers and policies and fine print. "$250,000 on each of us," he said. "It'll give you security if something happens to me." And if something happens to me, I didn't say, but the thought was there, quiet and unexamined, in the back of my mind. 2 months before the hospital, he started being nicer, more attentive. He brought me flowers for no reason. He suggested weekend getaways. He was present in ways he hadn't been in over a year. I thought we were healing, finding our way back to each other. I actually told my sister, voice full of hope and relief, that things were getting better, that whatever rough patch we'd been through was finally ending. "I'm so glad," she said. "You deserve to be happy." I did deserve to be happy, but I wasn't getting happiness. I was getting the performance of it. Michael playing the role of loving husband long enough to ensure that when I died, no one would suspect that he'd wanted it, that he'd planned for it. And then I got sick. It started as a urinary tract infection, something simple and treatable, but I let it go too long, ignored the symptoms because I was busy, because taking care of myself felt selfish when there was always something else that needed doing. By the time I realized how bad it was, the infection had spread to my kidneys and then my bloodstream. Septic shock, the doctor said. Critical condition, touch and go. Michael was there for every update, every decision, every awful moment. He held my hand when they said my organs were failing. He cried when they said the next 48 hours were crucial. He played his part so well that even the nurses commented on how devoted he was, how lucky I was to have someone who loved me so much. And I couldn't speak, couldn't tell them, couldn't explain that the tears on his face weren't grief. They were relief that the man holding my hand was the same man who had looked at the life insurance papers and seen not protection, but opportunity. All I could do was lie there, trapped in my failing body, and understand with perfect, horrifying clarity that my entire marriage had been a lie. Not from the beginning, maybe. There might have been genuine love once, real affection, true partnership. But somewhere along the way, it had curdled into something else, something toxic and calculating and cruel. And the worst part, I had made it easy for him. I had been the perfect wife, trusting, uncomplaining, turning myself into whatever shape he needed, making myself smaller so he could feel bigger, accepting his explanations, his excuses, his slow withdrawal from our life together. I had loved him so completely that I had forgotten to love myself, forgotten to question, forgotten to protect the parts of me that needed protecting. And now I was dying because of it, or supposed to be dying, supposed to be slipping away quietly while he planned Italian vacations and new beginnings with the woman he really loved. The life I thought I had, the quiet suburban happiness, the good marriage, the safe future, had never existed at all. It was a stage set, a beautiful facade with nothing behind it but empty space, and his ambition to be free. Recovery was supposed to be a good thing. Every day, the numbers improved. My white blood cell count stabilized. My organs began functioning properly again. The infection retreated under the assault of powerful antibiotics pumped through my veins hour after hour. My temperature normalized. My consciousness sharpened. The machines that had been doing the work of keeping me alive became unnecessary, removed one by one until it was just me, my body, healing despite itself. The doctors called it miraculous. A nurse told me I was blessed. My father, when he visited, cried and thanked God. But I knew the truth that none of them did. My recovery wasn't miraculous. It was inconvenient. Claudia, the nurse who had overheard Michael's hallway conversation, kept her promise. She made sure the information about my improvement stayed contained to just the medical team who needed to know. She coordinated with my doctors to delay updating Michael about my prognosis. They would tell him I was stable but critical, that we were monitoring the situation, that it was still too early to be certain. All technically true, but carefully calibrated to maintain his hope, his terrible, mercenary hope that I might still die. I needed that time, those days where he thought I was circling the drain while I was actually getting stronger. I needed to think, to plan, to figure out what the hell you're supposed to do when you discover your husband wanted you dead. Because here's the thing, they don't tell you about betrayal. The shock wears off. The initial disbelief fades, and what you're left with is a cold, hard question that demands an answer. What now? Michael visited every day. He would sit beside my bed, hold my limp hand, and speak in the soft, stricken tones of a man watching his wife die. Sometimes he'd read to me from books I'd mentioned loving. Sometimes he'd tell me about Bailey, about how the dog missed me, about how she slept on my side of the bed. Sometimes he'd just sit in silence and I'd watch him through barely opened eyes, trying to see something in his face that would explain this, trying to find the moment when the man I married became someone capable of this level of deception. I never found it. He was too good. His mask was perfect. The doctors said your kidneys are still struggling, he told me one afternoon, his thumb stroking across my knuckles in a gesture that used to comfort me. But they're doing everything they can. You're a fighter, Sarah. You always have been. Was there guilt in his voice? Regret? Or was he simply performing, the way he'd been performing for months, maybe years? I don't know what I'll do without you, he continued, and his voice cracked in exactly the right place. You're everything to me. I wanted to laugh, or scream, or grab his hand and squeeze it hard enough to break bones and make him feel even a fraction of the pain he'd caused. But I kept my breathing steady, kept my eyes mostly closed, kept playing my own role, the dying wife who didn't know she was being mourned prematurely, because I needed him to keep believing. I was unaware. I needed his guard to stay down. I needed him to think he was safe. Claudia would update me when she came on shift, speaking quietly while she checked my vitals. Your husband was asking about the life insurance paperwork today, she mentioned one evening. Wanted to know what he'd need to have prepared. For after. After I die, I said, my voice stronger now, but still rough from intubation. Yes, she paused, adjusting my IV line. He also asked about funeral homes. Said he wanted to have options ready, to not have to think about those details during such a difficult time. The audacity of it made my jaw clench. He was planning my funeral while I was alive, conscious, aware. He was preparing to mourn me while checking his investment portfolio to calculate exactly how much my death would be worth. There's something else, Claudia said, her voice dropping even lower. I've been discreetly looking into things. I have a friend who's a private investigator. I mentioned your situation, no names, no details. And she said this kind of thing. A spouse wanting another spouse to die for insurance money? It's more common than people think. Did she say what people do in this situation? She said most people don't find out until it's too late. But for those who do, Claudia met my eyes. She said the most important thing is documentation, evidence, because feelings aren't enough. Suspicion isn't enough. Even if you know the truth in your bones, you need proof. I have proof. You heard him. I did, and I testify to what I heard. But it's my word about a conversation I overheard, which a good lawyer could dismiss as misunderstanding or misinterpretation. You need more. You need to show a pattern, a plan, evidence of the relationship with this other woman, financial motivation, opportunity. She was right, and I knew it. What Michael had done, wishing for my death, planning for it, hoping for it, wasn't illegal, morally reprehensible, absolutely. But you couldn't arrest someone for wanting their spouse dead. You could only arrest them if they actively tried to make it happen. And that's when the dark thought slithered into my mind. What if he had tried to make it happen? I'd gotten sick fast, unusually fast. A simple UTI that spiraled into life-threatening sepsis in a matter of days. The doctors had been surprised by the progression. They'd used words like aggressive and atypical. What if it wasn't just bad luck? What if Michael had helped it along somehow? I thought back to the weeks before I got sick. Michael, bringing me tea every night before bed, insisting I drink it all. Something about antioxidants and health, me getting drowsier earlier than usual, sleeping more deeply, the UTI symptoms starting gradually, me mentioning them to Michael, him suggesting I wait a few days before seeing a doctor, just in case it cleared up on its own. You know how doctors are, he'd said. They'll just put you on antibiotics. Let's see if your body fights it off naturally first. And I'd listened, because I trusted him. Because when your husband makes a suggestion about your health, you assume it comes from a place of love and concern, not from a desire to see you decline. But what if those teas had something in them? Something to suppress my immune system, to make the infection harder to fight? What if his encouragement to wait on seeing a doctor was meant to give the infection time to spread? I felt sick in a way that had nothing to do with sepsis. Claudia, I said slowly, is there any way to test, to know if someone might have been given something that would make an infection worse? She looked at me for a long moment, understanding dawning in her eyes. You think he might have? I don't know. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe I'm seeing conspiracy where there's just coincidence. But it all happened so fast, and he was so insistent that I not go to the doctor right away. And I'll talk to my friend, Claudia interrupted. The investigator. She'll know what tests to run, what to look for. But Sarah, we need to be careful. If we're right, if he actually did something to make you sick, then he's dangerous. More dangerous than just someone hoping for an insurance payout. If he did it once, I said, the words tasting like ash, he could do it again. Exactly. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of that possibility settling over us both. My husband might not just be a man hoping his wife would die. He might be a man willing to help that death along, to facilitate it, to murder me slowly and call it bad luck. And if I recovered, if I went home, if I returned to normal life with this knowledge, but without proof, he would try again. He'd have to, because I'd be in the way, an obstacle between him and his freedom, his new love, his Italian vacation funded by my death. He'd tried as possibly and failed. Next time, he'd be more careful, more thorough. Next time, I might not have a Claudia to overhear conversations and sound the alarm. So, what do? I asked, hearing the fear in my own voice. If I can't go home, if I can't trust him, if I need evidence but don't have it yet, you buy time, Claudia said firmly. You stay here, in the hospital, where you're safe and monitored, and he can't try anything. You stay critical for as long as we can justify it medically. And while you're here, while he thinks you're dying, we investigate. We find evidence. We build a case. And then you decide. Press charges if there's enough for that. Divorce him with leverage if there isn't. But either way, you make sure you're safe before you make any moves. It was a plan. Not a good one, but better than nothing. Better than going home to a man who had proven he wanted me dead and might have already tried to make it happen. There's one more thing you need to know, Claudia said, and something in her tone made my stomach drop. Your husband brought someone by earlier, when you were sleeping, a woman, late 20s, pretty, blonde. He introduced her to the nurses as a friend, said she wanted to pay her respects just in case I died. Yes, she seemed upset, but Claudia hesitated. She also asked one of the other nurses about how long it typically takes for life insurance payouts to process. Said it was for peace of mind, that she wanted to make sure Michael would be taken care of financially while dealing with funeral costs. So that was her, the woman from the hallway conversation. The woman who had asked about the life insurance, who had planned Italian vacations on my death. She had stood in my hospital room, looked at my dying body, and asked about how quickly they could cash in. The rage that filled me then was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was clean and cold and pure. It burned away the last remnants of doubt, the final shreds of hope that maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe it was all some terrible mistake. No, they had done this together, planned it, hoped for it, maybe even facilitated it. And they had been so confident, so assured of their success, that they'd brought her into my hospital room to preview the aftermath. "I want to see her," I said. "Sarah, I want to see her. Both of them. Together. I need to know." I didn't finish the sentence. Didn't know how to articulate what I needed. Proof? Confirmation? Some final piece of evidence that would make this all undeniably real. If you see them, if you reveal that you're conscious and aware, you lose the advantage of them thinking you're unaware. I know, but I need. My voice broke. I need to look at them, to see them together, to understand who my husband really is and who he chose instead of me. Claudia studied me, and I saw something like compassion in her eyes, or maybe recognition. She'd said she'd been me once, in different circumstances. She understood the need to witness your own betrayal fully, to not just know it intellectually, but to see it with your own eyes. "Okay," she finally said, "but we do it smart. Tomorrow, when your husband visits, I'll make sure you're positioned so you can see the hallway through your partially open door. If he brought her today, chances are he'll bring her again. He's getting confident, careless. We let you see them, but they don't know you're seeing them. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something." That night, alone in my hospital room, with only the steady beep of monitors for company, I lay awake and thought about my marriage, about every moment I'd assumed was real, about every kiss, every promise, every quiet evening on the couch with Michael's arm around my shoulders. Had any of it been genuine? Or had I been living in a fiction from the start, a story he'd written where I played the role of loving wife while he played devoted husband, both of us performing until the script called for my exit? In the woman, his lover, his future, who was she? What had he told her about me? Did she know I was real? That I existed? That I had feelings and dreams and a life I'd built with him? Or had he turned me into a character in their story too? Just an obstacle to be overcome, a problem to be solved. I thought about her standing in my room, looking at my unconscious body, asking about insurance payouts, and I wondered if she felt anything. Guilt, discomfort, second thoughts about building a life on someone else's death. Probably not. If she was capable of that kind of reflection, she wouldn't be here in the first place. She wouldn't be planning European vacations while I fought for my life. They deserved each other, I thought. Two people who could look at a dying woman and see dollar signs. Two people who could call their relationship love, while it was founded on cruelty and greed. But they didn't deserve to win. And I was still alive to make sure they didn't. The next day came with the thin gray light of early morning filtering through hospital blinds. I'd barely slept. my mind churning through scenarios and possibilities and plans that all felt inadequate to the impossible situation I faced. Claudia arrived for her shift at 7, bringing with her a careful arrangement of my room. She angled my bed slightly, adjusted the partially open door, positioned a small mirror on the bedside table that would reflect the hallway. If you keep your eyes barely open, you can see without being seen, she explained quietly. The room lights are low enough that they won't notice, and I'll make sure to keep the hallway traffic minimal during visiting hours. You're risking a lot for me, I said. If anyone finds out, then I'll deal with it. But Sarah, I meant what I said. I was you once, and nobody helped me. Nobody gave me the chance to see the truth before it destroyed me. Her jaw tightened. I'm not letting that happen to you if I can prevent it. We didn't have to wait long. Michael arrived at 10, right when visiting hours started. He looked tired, I noticed through my mirror view. Dark circles under his eyes, hair slightly disheveled. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something like pity. Then he pulled out his phone, scrolled through messages, and smiled at something he read. The smile was warm, genuine, more genuine than any expression I'd seen on his face in months. He was texting her, I realized. His lover, probably making plans for after I died. The pity evaporated. Hey, Sarah, he said, approaching my bed with his mask firmly in place. Concerned husband, devoted partner. How are you feeling today? The nurse said you had a stable night. I kept my breathing even, my eyes closed, giving no indication I was aware. He sat in his usual chair and took my hand. I miss you. Bailey misses you. The house is so quiet without you in it. He paused. But you're going to get better. You're going to come home. The doctors are optimistic. Lies. All lies. The doctors had told him I was still critical, still touch and go. He was trying this new script, this false hope, in case anyone was listening, building his narrative of supportive husband who never gave up hope. He stayed for an hour, reading to me from a novel I'd mentioned wanting to read. His voice was soothing, practiced. If I didn't know better, I'd think he cared, but I did know better. Now, at 11, he checked his phone again, smiled again, then stood. I need to step out for a bit, make some calls about work. I'll be back this afternoon. He squeezed my hand. Hold on, Sarah. Please hold on. Through the mirror, I watched him leave, watched him walk down the hallway, watched him stop at the elevators where someone was waiting. Her. She was exactly as Claudia described. Late 20s, blonde, pretty in a conventional way. She wore expensive clothes, the kind that whispered money and taste. When Michael reached her, she smiled, and the smile transformed her face from pretty to beautiful. He looked around quickly, checking that the hallway was empty. Then he pulled her into an embrace that was anything but appropriate for a friend offering support. They held each other like people do when they've been apart too long, like lovers, like partners, like people who had been hiding for so long and were desperate for any moment of openness. I watched Michael kiss her, watched his hand cup the back of her head, watched her lean into him, watched them break apart reluctantly when a doctor emerged from another room, forcing them to step apart and compose themselves. But even separated, I could see it. The connection between them, the intimacy that came from shared secrets and plans, the way they stood just slightly too close, the way they looked at each other when they thought no one was watching. This wasn't new. This wasn't some recent affair or momentary weakness. This was established, long-term, real. They walked together to the elevator, and just before the doors closed, I heard him say something that made her laugh. The sound was bright and unforced. The kind of laugh that comes from genuine joy. The kind of laugh I used to make him laugh. The elevator doors closed. They were gone, and I was left in my hospital bed with the irrefutable proof of what I'd already known but hadn't fully witnessed. My husband loved someone else, had probably loved her for a long time, long enough to build a whole secret life with her, long enough to plan futures that required my absence. "You saw?" Claudia's voice came from the doorway. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "I'm sorry." She came to my bedside, checked my monitors, even though they were all reading normal. "I know seeing it makes it real in a different way." "It does." My voice came out hoarse. All this time, I thought. I don't know what I thought. That maybe it wasn't as bad as I feared. That maybe I'd misunderstood something. But there's no misunderstanding that. No, there isn't. I turned to look at her directly. I need to know everything. Who she is. How long this has been going on. My investigator friend can be here in 2 hours. If you're up for it. If you're ready. Was I ready? Ready to have my marriage dissected by a stranger? Ready to learn exactly how long I'd been living a lie? Ready to face the full scope of my husband's betrayal? No, I wasn't ready, but I needed to do it anyway. "Yes, please. I need to know." The investigator's name was Rita Marlowe, and she looked nothing like what I'd expected. Instead of some film noir detective with a trench coat and world-weary eyes, she was a woman in her 50s, with warm brown skin, short silver hair, and an air of competence that was immediately comforting. She arrived at 2 in the afternoon, dressed professionally, but not conspicuously. Claudia introduced her as a social worker here to talk about discharge planning, and anyone overhearing would have no reason to question it. Once the door was closed, Rita pulled a chair close to my bed and opened a tablet. Claudia filled me in on the basics. I did some preliminary research this morning. What I'm about to tell you isn't going to be easy to hear, but I believe you deserve the full truth. Are you ready? Yes. Your husband's affair isn't new. Based on credit card statements I was able to access through some, let's call them, creative means. He's been involved with this woman for at least 2 years, maybe longer. 2 years. I'd been living with him, sleeping beside him, building a life with him for 2 years, while he built another life with her. Her name is Jessica Prentice. She's 28, works in marketing. They met at a conference in Chicago about 3 years ago. Your husband listed it as a business trip on your shared credit card. The hotel charges, restaurant expenses, everything was paid for by the company card, so you wouldn't see personal expenses. How did you find all this? I have contacts, people who owe favors, and your husband wasn't as careful as he thought. He used the same email password for his work and personal accounts. I won't tell you how I got it, but I got it. From there, it was a matter of reading correspondence. And Rita's expression softened with something like sympathy. They've been planning this for at least 8 months, since February of this year. That's when emails about making a change and starting fresh begin appearing. He told her he was working on things and to be patient. Working on things, meaning waiting for me to die, or finding a way to make it happen. Sarah, there are emails between them discussing your health, specifically your tendency to put off seeing doctors. Jessica encouraged him to let nature take its course if you got sick, to not be too pushy about getting treatment. My stomach turned, so I hadn't been paranoid. He had actively discouraged me from getting medical help, had let the infection progress, hoping it would be severe enough to... There's more, Rita said gently. About 3 months ago, Michael purchased a substantial quantity of supplements online. Herbal remedies marketed as immune system boosters. But when I cross-referenced the specific products with some medical databases, I found that several of them can actually suppress immune function if taken in high doses or combined with certain other substances. The teas, I whispered. He made me tea every night. Said it was for my health. Rita nodded. I think he was using those supplements to weaken your immune system, making you more susceptible to infection. It's not something that could be proven without extensive testing, and even then, it would be difficult to establish intent. But the pattern is clear. He tried to kill me. Saying it out loud made it real in a way that thinking it hadn't. He actually tried to kill me. He tried to create conditions where you would die from natural causes. Yes, it's clever, in a horrific way. Sepsis is unpredictable. Happens to healthy people sometimes. If you'd died, it would have been tragic, but not suspicious. But I didn't die. No, you didn't, which leaves him in a complicated position. The plan failed. You're recovering. Eventually you'll go home. And then what? He can't exactly try the same method again. You'd be alert to it. He'd need a different approach. Or he'd need to give up on killing me and just divorce me like a normal person. Except divorce means splitting assets, losing the house you both own, likely paying alimony given that he out-earns you, whereas your death means he keeps everything and gets an insurance payout on top of it. The financial calculation was so cold, so precise, it took my breath away. What am I supposed to do with this information? I asked. Can we go to the police? We can. But here's the problem. Everything I just told you was obtained through legally questionable means. The email access, the credit card statements, none of it would hold up in court because it was acquired without proper warrants or authorization. A defense attorney would get it all thrown out immediately. So, it's useless. Not useless, but not sufficient for criminal charges either. What we have is a roadmap. We know what he did, how he did it, why he did it. Now we need to get him to reveal it in a way that's legally actionable. How? Rita leaned back, thinking. The most effective method would be getting him to confess, or at minimum, getting him to say enough incriminating things on record that it establishes a pattern of intent. Have you heard of two-party consent recording laws? Vaguely. In this state, you need both parties' consent to record a private conversation. But there's an exception. If one party has reasonable belief that a crime is being committed or planned, they can record without the other party's knowledge. Your situation would likely qualify, given what we know. So, I need to get him to confess while I'm secretly recording. Essentially, which sounds simple, but won't be easy. People don't usually just confess to attempted murder without significant motivation. We'd need to create a scenario where he feels safe enough to be honest, or trapped enough that he has no choice. I thought about this, thought about Michael's careful nature, his planning, his ability to maintain a mask for years. Getting him to slip up wouldn't be simple. What if, I said slowly, he thought I was dying for real this time? What if I pretended to have a relapse? If he thought his original plan was succeeding after all, would he be more likely to say something incriminating? Rita exchanged a look with Claudia. That's actually not a bad idea. If he believes you're unconscious and dying, he might drop his guard, might say things to Jessica he wouldn't say otherwise. But there's risk, Claudia added. If you pretend to be dying, he might try to help it along, pull plugs, push for withdrawal of care, something that would finish what he started, which would be caught on the hospital security cameras, Rita pointed out, and would absolutely be grounds for arrest. We were building a plan now, the three of us, a trap for my husband baited with my apparent death. Here's what I'm thinking, Rita said. You stage a medical crisis. Something that looks bad, but isn't actually dangerous. Maybe a drop in blood pressure, some alarming but controllable symptoms. The medical team prepares him for the worst. He thinks you're finally dying. We position recording devices in your room, the hallway, anywhere he might have private conversations. And then we wait, I finished. Wait for him to reveal himself. Exactly. It's not guaranteed to work. He might remain cautious, even if he thinks you're unconscious. But it's our best shot at getting actionable evidence. I looked at Claudia. You'd do this. Risk your job helping me set this up? I told you. I was you once. My ex-husband didn't try to kill me, but he did try to destroy me in other ways. And when I needed help, when I needed someone to believe me and stand with me, there was nobody. I lost everything because I fought alone. She met my eyes. You're not fighting alone. We're doing this. I felt something shift in my chest. For days, I'd been drowning in betrayal, in the knowledge that the person I trusted most had become my enemy. But here were these women, a nurse I'd met days ago, and an investigator who owed me nothing, willing to help me fight back. Okay, I said, let's do it. Let's catch him. The plan took 3 days to set up properly. During that time, Michael continued his visits, continued his performance of devoted husband. He brought me flowers, white roses, of course. He read to me. He held my hand and spoke in quiet, hopeful tones about my recovery, about coming home, about returning to normal life. And every word was a lie. Every gesture was theater. But I played my part too. I remained mostly unconscious, occasionally stirring, but never fully aware. I gave no sign that I knew anything about his affair, his plans, his attempts to hasten my death. Meanwhile, Rita worked her network. She installed tiny cameras in my hospital room, disguised as medical equipment. She positioned recording devices throughout the space. She coordinated with Claudia to ensure the audio feeds would be captured clearly and legally. And then, on the 4th day, we staged my crisis. It started at noon. Claudia administered a harmless but dramatic-looking treatment that made my blood pressure drop temporarily. Alarms sounded. Medical staff rushed in. The doctor on call spoke in urgent tones about deterioration, about complications, about preparing for the worst. Michael was called immediately. He arrived within an hour, face pale, eyes wide. The doctor met him in the hallway. I could see them through the crack in my door, could hear their voices. Mr. Harrington, I'm afraid your wife has taken a turn for the worse. The infection has caused additional complications. Her kidneys are failing again. We're doing everything we can, but what? Michael's voice was sharp with fear, hope. I couldn't tell. You should prepare yourself. The next few hours will be critical. If she doesn't stabilize soon, we may need to discuss end-of-life decisions. End-of-life decisions. The words Michael had been waiting to hear for weeks. Can I see her? Of course. But Mr. Harrington, she's not conscious. She won't know you're there. I understand. He entered my room, and I kept my eyes closed, my breathing shallow and labored, as Claudia had coached me. The monitors above my bed showed all the right troubling numbers. To anyone looking, I was clearly in crisis. Michael sat in his chair, took my hand, and said nothing for a long time. I could feel him watching me, studying me. Was he looking for signs that this was real? Signs that I was truly dying this time? Or was he simply trying to feel something? Grief, regret, anything human? Sarah, he finally said, his voice low. If you can hear me, I'm sorry. Sorry. The word almost made me open my eyes, almost broke my cover. What was he sorry for? Getting caught? Not succeeding? Being who he was? I never meant for it to be like this. I never wanted to hurt you. The lie was so enormous, it took up all the air in the room. But I couldn't keep living like we were, pretending to be happy, pretending we had a future. I fell out of love with you, Sarah. It wasn't anything you did. You were a good wife, maybe too good, but I couldn't be the husband you deserved anymore. As if that justified any of this. As if falling out of love gave him the right to help me die, rather than just asking for a divorce, like a person with even minimal human decency. Jessica makes me happy, really happy, in ways you never could. There it was, not even the grace to avoid comparing us in my supposed final moments. He continued, his voice gaining confidence, as if my unconscious state made it safe to finally tell the truth. I know you probably wouldn't understand this, but waiting for you to die, it's been torture. Seeing you in this bed, knowing it would all be over soon, but not knowing when. It's been harder than you'd think. Harder than he'd think. My fingers twitched with the effort of not closing into a fist. But it's almost over now. The doctor said hours, maybe. By tomorrow, this will all be finished, and I can finally start my real life. His real life, as if the 7 years we spent together was just a prologue to his authentic story. He stayed for another 10 minutes, mostly in silence, then stood. Goodbye, Sarah. I really did love you once. I hope you believe that. I didn't. I would never believe that again. He left the room, and through the mirror, I watched him pull out his phone immediately, watched him dial, watched his face transform from somber to excited as someone answered. It's happening, he said into the phone. The doctor said tonight, tomorrow at the latest. It's finally happening. He walked toward the elevators. Voice dropping but still audible on the recording devices Rita had planted. I know. I can't believe it either. 2 hours ago they called and said she'd taken a turn. Organ failure. They're talking about pulling life support. A pause. Yeah, I told them to do whatever was necessary to keep her comfortable, but that I understood there was only so much they could do. Another pause, then a laugh. Jessica, by this time next week, we'll be free. Actually, free. And in 8 months when it's respectable, we can finally be public. I listened to him make plans on my grave, listened to him discuss selling the house, buying a condo downtown, taking that trip to Italy that he'd promised me for our anniversary, but had clearly been planning with her instead. Listen to him be happy about my death. And I felt something crystallize inside me, something hard and cold and absolutely certain. He thought he'd won, thought he'd gotten away with it, thought my death was going to be his liberation. But I was alive, and I had every word he just said on camera. And now, finally, I had him. The recording was damning, but as Rita explained in a hushed conference in an unused hospital room late that night, it still wasn't quite enough. He confessed to wanting you dead, to hoping you'd die, to planning a future with another woman based on your death. All of that is morally reprehensible, but not actually illegal. She pulled up the audio files on her tablet, scrubbing through to specific points. Here, waiting for you to die. That could be interpreted as simply accepting the inevitable, not wishing for it or causing it. But he tried to kill me, I said, frustration making my voice sharp. The supplements, the teas, delaying medical treatment, all circumstantial. We can show he bought the supplements. We can show he encouraged you to wait on seeing doctors. But can we prove he intended those actions to kill you? That's what a prosecutor would need, intent. So we still have nothing. We have something. We have evidence of financial motivation, of a pre-existing relationship with another woman, of statements showing he was waiting for your death and planning for it. If something else happens, if he makes another attempt, if he does something actionable, this recording provides context. It establishes pattern and motive. So I just wait for him to try to kill me again. Claudia, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. What if we push him, make him desperate? Rita and I both turned to look at her. Think about it, she continued. Right now, he thinks Sarah is dying on her own. His plan is working, just later than he wanted. He can be patient because he thinks nature is handling things for him. But what if that changed? What if Sarah suddenly started recovering again? He'd know the deathbed confession was staged. Rita said slowly. He'd know we were setting him up. Would he? Claudia challenged. Or would he just think he got unlucky twice? That his wife keeps miraculously recovering despite all odds? And if he's desperate enough, I said, understanding where this was going, he might do something obvious, something we can catch him at. Rita was quiet, thinking it through. It's risky. If he suspects you're aware of his plans, he could run, disappear with Jessica, move assets offshore, vanish before we can build a case. But if he doesn't suspect, Claudia said, if he just thinks his dying wife has terrible timing and keeps recovering when she's supposed to finally kick it, then he might get sloppy, might try something desperate that we can actually prove. It was a gamble, a dangerous one. But what choice did I have? I couldn't live in this limbo forever, pretending to be dying while my husband waited for me to finish the job. And I couldn't go home, couldn't return to normal life, knowing he'd already tried once and would likely try again. What did you have in mind? I asked Claudia. Tomorrow, you wake up, suddenly, dramatically. Your vitals improve. The doctors are baffled, but pleased. It's another miracle recovery. Michael's plan has failed again. And then we watch what he does. We monitor him constantly, follow him, record him, document everything. We wait for him to make a mistake. Or make a move, Rita added. If he's going to try something else, he'll have to do it relatively quickly. He can't have his wife keep almost dying and then recovering. It looks suspicious, creates questions. He needs you dead soon, or he needs to abandon the plan entirely. And he won't abandon the plan, I said with certainty. Not when he's already gone this far. Not when Jessica is waiting. Not when he's tasted what he thinks is freedom. No, Rita agreed. He won't abandon it, which means he'll try something else. And when he does, we'll be ready. The next morning, I woke up. The doctor on call, who was in on the plan, reluctantly but helpfully, entered my room during Michael's visit and expressed shocked delight at my improved numbers. "Mrs. Harrington, you're awake. This is remarkable." I blinked, disoriented, as if genuinely confused. What happened? You took a severe turn yesterday. We were very worried, but your body has responded to treatment beyond our expectations. Your kidney function is improving. The infection markers are dropping. It's quite extraordinary. Michael's face, when I turned to look at him, was a study in conflicting emotions. Relief warred with something darker. Disappointment, frustration. He recovered quickly, reaching for my hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sarah, oh my God, Sarah, you're okay." He squeezed my hand too tight. "I thought I'd lost you." "Michael?" My voice was weak, genuinely rough from disuse. "I feel so strange. What day is it? You've been critical for days. We thought—" His voice broke on cue. "We thought this might be it. But I'm okay now? The doctor says you're improving. It's a miracle." The word tasted bitter in his mouth. I could tell. Over the next few days, my recovery continued to progress. Color returned to my face. My strength increased. The medical team began talking about transferring me out of ICU, about rehabilitation, about eventually going home. And Michael's mask began to crack. It was subtle at first. A tightness around his eyes, a forced quality to his smile. He started staying for shorter visits, claiming work obligations. He checked his phone more frequently, typed messages with increasing agitation. Rita, true to her word, was following him. She had contacts who owed favors, people who could tail someone without being noticed, and what they found was troubling. "He's meeting with Jessica more frequently," she told me during one of our secret conferences. "They're not even trying to be careful anymore. Yesterday, they had lunch at a restaurant 4 blocks from here. They were arguing. About what? We couldn't get close enough to hear specifics, but from body language and the few words we caught, it seems Jessica is getting impatient. She wants to know when this will be over, when they can be together openly. And Michael? Michael looks stressed, very stressed. He's losing control of the situation, and he knows it. Good, I thought viciously. Let him stress. Let him feel a fraction of the pain and fear I've been feeling. But stress makes people dangerous. Desperate people do reckless things. We didn't have to wait long to find out how reckless Michael would get. It happened on a Tuesday night. I'd been moved out of ICU and into a regular recovery room. My guard was lighter here. Fewer nurses, less monitoring, more privacy. Rita had installed cameras in this room too, but the security was objectively less robust than in ICU. Michael visited during evening hours. bringing magazines and a vase of flowers. White roses, always white roses. He seemed calmer than he had in days, almost cheerful. "You look so much better," he said, arranging the flowers on my bedside table. "The doctor says maybe another week and you can come home." "I can't wait," I said, and I meant it in ways he couldn't know. I couldn't wait to be out of this hospital, away from his presence, free to start dismantling the lie that was our marriage. "I was thinking," he said casually, pulling a small bottle from his jacket pocket. "I brought you some of that tea you used to like, the herbal blend. I thought it might help you relax, help you sleep better." The tea, the same tea he'd given me before I got sick. My heart rate picked up, actually picked up, setting off the monitor beside my bed with a gentle alarm. "You okay?" Michael asked, concerned. "Yeah, just moved wrong, pulled something." I forced myself to calm down, to smile. "Tea sounds nice. Thank you." He prepared it using hot water from the bathroom, stirring in honey from packets he'd also brought. I watched him carefully, watched his hands, looking for any suspicious movements. Did he add something? I couldn't tell. He kept his body angled just slightly away from my direct view, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Here," he said, bringing the cup to me. "Careful, it's hot." I took the cup, held it, let the steam rise into my face. "This smells different than I remember. It's a new blend. I thought you'd like it." He watched me intently. "Try it." Every instinct I had screamed not to drink it, but I needed to know, needed to catch him in the act. If there was something in this tea, if he'd poisoned it or laced it with something harmful, we needed evidence. "Actually," I said, "I'm not really thirsty right now. Would you mind putting it on the table? I'll drink it in a bit." Something flickered across his face. Annoyance? Suspicion? "It's better when it's hot," he insisted. "Come on, just a few sips." "Michael." I said I'll drink it later. "Sarah." His voice took on an edge I'd never heard before. Not the gentle husband, not the concerned partner. Something colder, harder. "Just drink the tea." "No." We stared at each other, and in that moment, all pretense dropped. He knew. Somehow, he knew that I knew, or at least suspected that something was wrong. "What's going on?" he asked quietly. "Nothing. I just don't want tea right now." "You're lying." He stood, and there was something menacing in his posture. "You've been different. Since you woke up, something's off. I almost died, Michael. Of course I'm different." "No, this is something else." He moved closer. "Do you know something? Did someone tell you something?" My pulse hammered. The monitor betrayed me again, beeping faster. "Tell me what? Did a nurse say something? Talk about something they shouldn't have?" He knew. Oh God, he knew. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." He was beside my bed now, looming over me. "You know. Somehow you know." "Know what, Michael?" I decided to push it, to make him say it. "What would I know?" His hand shot out and gripped my wrist, hard enough to hurt. "Don't play games with me, Sarah. I'm smarter than you think. Let go of me. Not until you tell me what you know." The door burst open. Claudia, who'd been monitoring from the nurse's station, had seen the confrontation on camera. "Mr. Harrington, please step away from the patient." Michael released my wrist, but didn't step back. "This is between me and my wife. This is a hospital, and I'm asking you to leave. I'm not going anywhere. Then I'll call security." For a moment, I thought he might actually attack her. His hands clenched into fists. His jaw tightened. But then he seemed to collect himself, to remember where he was, and that there were cameras and witnesses. Fine, he said coldly. I'll go. But Sarah, he turned to me. We need to talk, soon, about a lot of things. He left, taking the teacup with him. As soon as the door closed, my hands started shaking. Claudia rushed to my side. Are you hurt? Did he hurt you? I'm okay, just scared. God, Claudia, he knows something's wrong. But he doesn't know what. Not exactly. And more importantly, she pulled out her phone, showing me the security camera feed. We have him on video getting aggressive with you in your hospital bed, after insisting you drink something you didn't want to drink. After we've documented him bringing you similar teas before you got sick the first time. It's still not proof. No, but it's pattern. It's behavior. It's motive and opportunity and suspicious circumstances all stacking up. Rita arrived 20 minutes later, moving fast. He went straight to Jessica's apartment. They're there now. I have someone outside recording through the window. They left the curtains partially open. She pulled up a video feed on her tablet. Michael and Jessica were clearly arguing. We couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language told the story. His aggressive gestures, her defensive posture, both of them visibly upset. Then Michael did something that changed everything. He pulled out his phone, opened what looked like a notes app, and showed Jessica something on the screen. Something that made her go pale. Something that made her sink onto the couch with her head in her hands. Rita's person outside managed to zoom in just enough to catch a few words on the screen before Michael pulled it away. If she knows, we're both screwed. Have to finish this now. Finish this now, Rita read aloud. That's intent. That's conspiracy. That's actionable. Is it enough? I asked. Combined with everything else? Combined with the video of him trying to force you to drink something? Combined with his financial motive and documented affair? Combined with medical evidence that your original infection was suspicious? She looked up from her tablet, and her eyes were fierce. Yes, I think it's enough. I think we can finally take this to the police.